Hello everyone, it's Kathy here, and today I'd like to share with you how to create a simple gum leaf drawing just using some materials that you have around the house. For this particular project, I'm using some gum leaves that I found on the ground for some inspiration, as well as a photograph that I found from the internet, just so that I have a realistic representation. I've got some wax crayons, some oil pastels, and I've also got a large piece of paper, and this is a close-up of the image from the internet which I've used. As you can see that it has some blooms in blossom. I'm just having a look at the stems just so that I can get an idea of the shape and the thickness of the twigs, just so that I've got an idea of how to use that. For the leaves, I'm going to use a wax rubbing, so I'm going to place a leaf, a gum leaf, and rub it on the background. So I'm going to start now with the stem, and I'm having a look at the image just so that I can get an idea. So I'm starting by using a brown oil pastel, and I'm going to do the main stem of the gum leaf cluster. And as you can see, I've just started from the top corner, and at the top of the branch it's slightly thicker, as you can see in the photo, and it starts to thin down. So I'm just reinforcing that just by going over it, just to make it a little bit thicker, and lengthening my line as I go. And then I'm just going to add some of the smaller twigs that stem from that branch, and I'm just doing some soft curves and highlighting one branch in particular, because that's where I plan to put some of the blooms, and because I saw that in the photo where those blooms were, the branch was slightly thicker. So I'm just drawing some smaller lines just to represent some of those twigs where the leaves from the gum leaf cluster formed, just like in the branch that I found. Down the bottom is where I plan to have one of the clusters, and so for that I'm going to get some more oil pastels, and I'm going to get those ready now. And in the photograph there is a yellow center, so I'm going to start by drawing some circles, just rubbing some circles, and I'm going to do an odd number. I'm going to do 3, and from that I'm just going to draw some lines coming out from the center, and these form are going to help form that bristly shape that is seen in the photo. And as I'm doing this, I'm slightly curving the lines, so it's a bit like an eyelash, if you can just compare it to that. So I start with yellow, then I'm going to orange, and I'm just pressing not too heavily, and then I'm slightly extending my lines, and then I'm going to do my top layer, which is red, and you can see that there's a slight curve, and I'm not pressing too dark, that way I can get a slight curve. And then at the tip of each I'm doing a red dot, because in the photograph the blossoms had the at the end of the spikes had these little pokey things. I'm not sure what the technical term is. So I'm going to do that for all of those 3 blooms, and you can see that I'm just doing a slight curve because I want this to look as realistic as possible, so to add some fullness, and doing those red dots at the end. So once again I'm just going around doing some dots, and I'm going to go down and do my next cluster. So I'm going to start with that yellow center and work my way around, starting with the yellow, then I'll move to the orange layer, and then again I'll go to the red. So start with small, and I've sped this up quite a bit, so it's the same process. And because I want this to look full, again I've just curved those lines. It makes such a huge difference. So the process is the same. Each time you do a different layer, just lengthen your lines a little bit. If you feel you need some more lines to make some fullness, you can always go back and add some more, which you can see what I'm doing here. Adding some more lines adds depth and fullness, and making that curved line adds realism and some dimension to those blossoms. So next I'm having a look to see if I need to add some more. So there's a space here and there's a small twig, so I'm just going to do 2, and they're going to be slightly facing up, and I'm doing the same technique there, and these are roughly the same size as the other blooms, and you get into a sort of rhythm. Next I'm ready to start on the leaves, and this is where the rubbings come into place. So I'm positioning them underneath the paper, and you just have to sort of feel with your finger and place your crayon on the side and press firmly so that you can get a good impression. And I'm doing these in sets of 2 and placing them as like in the cluster of leaves that I found, trying to make it look as real as possible. I'm also trying to connect these leaves up to the twigs because I'd like this to look organic and natural, and moving them around slightly, even so that they overlap. If I am slightly off, it doesn't really matter, as long as I get some form of impression of the leaf. So I just keep moving it around until I get a nice design that I'm happy with. And you can even flip your leaf over as well to get an impression of the back so that the leaves overlap and go in different directions as well. It will work. Just make sure that you just keep feeling with your fingers and hold that crayon firmly in place on its side and just rub. I'm just going around and moving around and having a look as I go to see where those twigs are, where things meet, just so that I can try to get things to look as natural as possible. Looking at the photo, looking at my leaf cluster as well, just to see what it would look like in nature. And you can see from the crayon you do get some of the veins and the outline of the leaf using this technique. So trying to connect things up to those lines that I drew as well. This doesn't take that long. The hardest bit is just trying to feel the leaf through the paper, because the leaf is very, very thin. And I'm nearly done. I'm just having a look to see where there's another branch, just so that you can have some leaves. Just moving things around, having a look. And I just lift the paper, which is what you see me do, just so that I can see what direction the leaf is, just so that I can have another feel with my fingers, so that it makes it easy for me to position the crayon. As I mentioned, it's a thin leaf, and sometimes it is a little bit tricky to find. Flipping over just so that the leaves go in different directions as well. Next we're going to do a wash, and this is done by just using a little bit of paint and adding water to get a watered down mixture. So this is going to be for the blue and also green, just to go over the leaves. And you just add some water to the acrylic paint just to get a runny texture, and it is really nice way to fill in the white space. And because we've used crayon and oil pastels, it resists the paint, and you'll see the really nice soft water look effect that this creates. So even though we didn't do a lot of leaf rubbings, that's okay, because the white space will be filled in with this water wash. So I'm just making sure that it's nice and runny, just so that the color isn't too intense for the water wash. So this part doesn't take long either. So all you do is just with a paintbrush, dip it in and just lightly run it over the entire image, and you can see how the crayon resists, and it is covered in no time with the blue wash. And you just keep going until everything is covered. If you feel that there's puddles that you want to get rid of, just get a paper towel and you can soak up some of that, but I quite like that puddled effect. Next, I'm just going over the green leaves with the green wash, just so that it fills in some of the spaces that were left from the rubbing, and this just gives it that nice soft watercolor look. So I've just about finished, and all I have to do now is wait for it to dry, and that's it. So next I'm going to show the finished product. It's semi-dry, it's nearly dry, and it looks very pretty and quite realistic with just a few items that you have around the house. So that is that. I hope you enjoyed it and have a great day.